public, councillors and officers who are joining us for today's meeting. Please be aware that the council is video recording this meeting and this will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. I would just like to highlight some key points of the meeting format. Please can I ask everyone to have their phones turned off or set to silent. If councillors have any concerns about hearing or seeing others in the meeting, please let the chair or a council officer know straight away. The fire exit is clearly marked, with 2 in this room being the closest. The assembly point is the flat grass area by the patio. Please remain seated unless you're invited to speak or need to take a comfort break. The toilet facilities are out in the corridor. Members of the public are invited to participate in the meeting with the key points as follows. When the public participation agenda item is introduced, please raise your hand to show you wish to speak and I will invite you to speak. If you are comfortable standing, please do so to ensure you can be heard across the room. Public participation is limited to a maximum of 4 minutes per person. You do not need to state your name when you start speaking. I would ask that participants looking to leave the meeting wait until the end of an agenda item to limit distractions for other participants. To all present, please remember to show respect to others in the meeting and avoid interrupting where possible, to enable others to follow the meeting. If any councillor feels concerned about any aspects of the meeting or discussion, please clearly state point of order. I will then gesture for you to elaborate. If anyone present is found to be behaving unacceptably, they can be ejected from the meeting by resolution. Thank you for listening. On behalf of Council, I would like to thank everyone for attending this Town Council meeting. Thank you. Please may I have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. We have 4 apologies. Councillors Moore-Raven, Matthews and Taylor have personal commitments. I'm afraid to say Councillor Rutland is unwell. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 2, disclosure of interests. To deal with any disclosure by members of any disclosable pecuniary interest and interests other than pecuniary interest as defined under the Seaford Town Council Code of Conduct and the Localism Act 2011 in relation to matters on the agenda. Councillor Sturgeon.
I wish to disclose in relation to items 11 and 12 that my children, aged 10 and 7 respectively, are junior members of Seaford Town Football Club.
Thank you. Goes together. Thank you. Number 3, public participation. Still with any questions or brief representations from members of the public in accordance with relevant legislation and Town Council policy. Thank you. Shall we literally go left to right?
Right to left, as they're
Oh, you're well, only because I'm sitting this way, doing this way, sorry.
Good evening, I'm Andy Shields. I'm a local resident that lives in Bramber Road. I wanted to make a few comments relating to item 12 on your agenda. The first was about floodlights. As a local resident, it's always obvious when there's a floodlit game. The lights produce a lot of glare and they illuminate my garden. I can actually read a book in my garden when the floodlights are on. The floodlights have been present since before I moved into Bramber Road and are, I accept, part of living near the Crouch. However, the floodlights do without question cause a nuisance to local people. The light pollution, noise and foul language make it hard to enjoy my garden when a game is on. And given games go on till nearly 10 p.m, it disrupts the sleep of children on school nights. It's also a case that when there is a floodlit game midweek, there's a lot of football associated parking in the roads adjacent to the Crouch, and this can make it hard for local people returning from work to find parking. From reviewing Seaford Town Football Club's website, it appears that the under-23 team, which was one of the primary reasons for increasing the number of floodlit games that they wanted, doesn't exist any longer. I'd question actually whether they need the 22 games that they now have planning permission for. Floodlights are also used for training sessions, and only 4 of the 8 floodlights should be illuminated during training sessions. In my experience, it's normal for all 8 to be on during training sessions. As landlord, could I ask Seaford Town Council to publicise the dates that floodlights will be needed by Seaford Town Football Club each year. Surely the schedule of games and training should be available, and as landlords you should be told about it. And if you publicised it, or there was a notice somewhere prominently in the Crouch saying when the floodlights will be on, I personally find that very useful. I accept there's cup games which might not be apparent at the beginning of the year, so there needs to be the ability for variation. But it seems to me administratively quite easy for the council to manage the number of floodlit games and to let residents know whether there's going to be 10 floodlit games in a year or 22. I also very quickly wanted to talk about the adverts that are around the football ground. They are, as I understand it, still there. They've got planning permission now, but they're there without your permission. If I put an advert at around the Crouch to sell my services, I would expect it to be removed. I don't see why the football club, who have no tenure of the railing where they hang the adverts, should be allowed to keep them there. Before lockdown, they used to remove them at the end of every game. Nobody objected to that. It was the club sponsors giving a sponsorship message during a game when there were some fans in there and opposing teams. The pitch is in theory available for other football teams to hire. How can they play in front of adverts that are for Seaford Town Football Club? It makes it very difficult for other clubs to feel that they're entitled to book what is a publicly owned football pitch. When planning permission was granted, there were 20 odd adverts up there. There's now 47, 8 of which are double adverts. Planning permission was very specific. The football club isn't allowed to increase the number of adverts. They've done that. They're already in breach of planning regulations. Again, I'd ask Seaford Town Council to manage the local public space and the impact it has on me as a user that uses the Crouch for recreation every day. Thank you.
I'll stand up, that makes me much taller. Good to see some familiar faces and also see quite a few new ones. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Linda Bowler, a local resident and formerly of Crouch Concerns Group. I want to say a few words in relation to item 11, the Stop the Fence campaign. I'm not here to mention the historical troubles that led to the campaign, but I'd like just to remind everyone that the petition was signed by 573 Seaford residents, 570 who objected to the fence. That leaves just 3 who said they fought. But in fact, 2 of those people ticked the wrong box. So there was in fact just 1 person who didn't want the fence to go. So as they'd say at Westminster, eyes to the right 570, eyes to the left 1. And we also benefited from a whole host of testimonials that were volunteered from Seaford residents to explain the reasons why residents were in fact against the fence at the Crouch. And those 2 documents you've had circulated in your pack. And so I'm not going to go through those, but I hope that you will find time to read them. The petition and the content analysis being the companion document to the petition. So the 2 together offer the breadth and the depth of residents' feelings, and I think that's quite important to note. And even though the fence proposal was withdrawn, I do believe that many of the testimonials still have real currency in terms of just how much and why the residents value the Crouch so much. And those points shouldn't be forgotten, which is why I'm talking to it tonight. And I think it's fair to say that some of those testimonials may have made uncomfortable reading for both the council and their tenants, the football club, because residents voice their opinions loud and clear. And this is reflected in one of the themes which is featured in the analysis, and that hovered around integrity, honesty, trust and transparency. However, having said that, I'd generally like to acknowledge this evening that the recently introduced biannual meetings between the council and Crouch Concerns and the council and the football club offer a promising mechanism that did not exist this time last year to bring issues to the table. So I think that should be noted. So returning back to the testimonials, there were concerns that went way beyond the fence, which is why I think it's important to note that. And I was struck just how important it was to local residents, how much they valued the public green space in the Crouch, and that the Crouch should remain a public green space to be shared by the town football club as council tenants to play their matches on it. Excuse me, I'm croaking. So I'd like to say that I'm still stopped regularly in Seaford by local residents I met, either on the doorstep or at other points in the campaign. And it's clear that they still have hopes and expectations of seeing behaviour change, both within the council and the football club, particularly as both are under relatively new leadership. And sort of to finish, this morning I noticed a newly painted large white signage on the prom reminding cyclists and pedestrians to share with care, which I thought could be something that all users of the Crouch could be mindful of doing, particularly as we're only in the early stages of the football season and tensions are already appearing, and I would really hate to risk a return to those dark days of last season. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm going to do my start. I'm Bob Goff. I am a retired police chief inspector, and I did a lot of the work for Crouch Concerns in relation to Seaford Town Football Club and some of the issues that surrounded it. And I have circulated the first part of my documentation outlining all the things, including threats of violence, intimidation and criminal damage. And the Detective Superintendent East Division is aware. Advert objections. I'm going to focus on the adverts. First of all, they were put up illegally because without permission of Seaford Town Council, and after the Prime Minister advised everyone to stay at home. The adverts are incongruous with a local designated green space, and it's in Seaford Town Neighbourhood Plan that a designated green space is like a green belt outside the town. No other permanent adverts are allowed around pitches and parks on the whole of Lewis District. Lewis District's policy is not to have adverts in their parks. Seaford Town Football Club do not lease or rent the pitch other than hire on a match-by-match basis. So adverts are actually on Seaford Town's public land, the designated local green space. I have documentary evidence from Seaford Town Council that they are publicly liable for the said adverts under their public liability insurance and not the football club, because it's on Seaford Town Council land, not any land leased by Seaford Town Football Club. So you have got a public liability risk, and I wonder if Seaford Town Council has checked whether your liability insurance would cover you for such adverts. Seaford Town Football Club admitted an income per annum in excess of 100k per year, yet have pleaded poverty for temporary fencing, got a grant, 5,000 for maintaining the pitch, got a grant for the disabled bay, all from the football club. And what I would beg the councillors is to ask where this money goes before accepting Seaford Town Football Club need advertising revenue. Of course, or indeed better still, ask for their accounts, have a look at their accounts. I think you would be extremely surprised where the money comes from and where the money goes. And lastly, I've received legal advice that indicates that by the adverts being in place on a permanent basis and the fence being enclosed, and it is enclosed, the fence there is enclosed, and the fact that despite Seaford Town Council saying contrary, that no other agency or body has been allowed to formally hire the pitch, this constitutes a disposal of a designated local green space, which is an offence under section 127 of the 1972 Local Government Act as amended. And this, Seaford Town Council, you may be open to legal challenge on this. Now note, section 127 places on parish and town councils the similar responsibility that section 123 places on primary councils. I would argue that because you are undertaking a primary council function that hitherto was undertaken by the Lewis District Council, that actually section 123 applies to you as well. Thank you very much. Sorry for the overrun.
Would you like to speak now?
My name's Bridget Lloyd. I live very close to the crash. I actually didn't realise I could speak because I could speak for hours on the subject. I've just come to actually support crash concerns. That's it. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Bob Downing. One of the concerns people, this package has been rushed into this particular meeting, having been delayed. Nothing in it has been addressed at the right time. It goes way back into last year, and we've had no progress at all, no significant progress. Even the meetings that the council has arranged just drifted into nothing. It has been bounced on this full council, having never been through the Community Services Committee, which would be the norm for it to be properly examined and a recommendation come up to full council. The various questions raised by a lot of the delay, because there was no response from the council, we started probing. And the more we dug up, the more questions we started asking. And that threw up a lot of things, which allegedly it's all our fault that there was a high pressure on the council to answer our questions. That wasn't our fault, we just started digging in want of something to do, if you like, whilst we were waiting for the council's answers, which never ever came. The process started with a very biased, one-sided, wholly unsatisfactory report to the Community Services Committee about the fence. This agenda item 12 is again very biased, I'm afraid, in favour of the football club and not looking at the interests of the wider Seaford public on something that everybody normally recognises what a public recreation ground is and what should be there, or should take place there, and what shouldn't. The council has taken the view that that doesn't really matter. That the priority is Seaford Town Football Club. You are being asked in here to delegate a lot of things to council officers. I beg you, please don't do that, because that system manifestly failed in the past. We've now got Louise Lawrence in place, and I'm hearing hopeful signs that she's getting a grip on the management of assets, which is a large part of what the council does. It wasn't very satisfactory in the past at all, possibly because you didn't have the resources, or previous councils did not have the resources. I beg you to put this to bed for the moment until it can be properly examined. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, thank you very much. We're then on to agenda item number 4, which is to note the following minutes, approving or not approving recommendations as required. So, planning and highways, I propose that we take all 3 together. So that's the 27th of July, 17th of August and the 7th of September. Please can I have a proposer? Thank you, and seconder? And then all in favour? Thank you. And as it says on here, all the other outstanding minutes will be presented at the October full council meeting. Number 5, civic update reports. So that's for the mayor's report and details of engagement. So do we have any questions on the mayor's report? No, then we were asked to note the contents of this report. Can I have all in proposer and a seconder, and then all in favour? Thank you.
Chair.
The young mayor's not here, so we will move on to... Sorry? That's good. Then on to number 6, which is the town clerk's update report, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think it would be fair to say it's been a very important and very busy time for Seaford Town Council. And I think what I wanted to highlight to introduce the report is a lot of work has been going on over these months. I would describe that as sort of setting this council up for success. It's a relatively new term, you were elected in May. And I think the priorities have really been about building towards having the most successful 4-year term possible. A lot of work is therefore taking place to help to achieve that. And I think looking ahead, there's a lot of good things coming in, there's a lot of good things in the pipeline. And some exciting times ahead, I think, for the council. We can see that. I mean, we're going to be agreeing a strategic plan together in November. But again, if you look at what's going to be in that plan, that really sets out for our council and for our residents a number of very exciting and important initiatives and projects that the council will be taking forward. And also within that plan, we'll be working very hard, especially through the work of the Community Services Committee, to really draw together like a prioritised list of what we will be doing as a council over the period ahead, so the residents can clearly see what the council will be doing over this period of time. Meanwhile, we've also, as already been mentioned actually, just before the election, important work was done working with officers working with the councils to see how to make some improvements to our structures, including the introduction of the Head of Asset Projects Services post, the HAPS post, and we could already see that post, having that new senior post working across our projects and our assets, is making a real positive difference to us as an organisation going forward. And I think there's more to come in terms of more changes we're making and more improvements we can make as we build on that successful start to that post. We've also, at the same time, we've also, as you'll have seen, Personnel Committee have asked for a further job evaluation process plan over the months ahead, and that will further improve our structure as a council going forward, drawing upon external expertise and advice. In terms of councils themselves, yourselves if you like, you obviously had quite a comprehensive induction programme at the beginning of your time as a councillor. And as I've said in this report and others, it's really noticeable how engaged you have been and what an engaged and active group of councillors we have for this term. But as councillors, we're aware we're looking to build upon that initial induction, and we have 2 further very important workshops in the pipeline. One about SIL to help to guide councillors about how SIL expenditure can be used over the months and years ahead, and one with Trevor Lego from SALP around the employer duty, and not just about that will help in terms of strong communication between all of us as a council, but also supporting councillors in effective engagement and communication with residents, including in times of challenge, of which we have experienced some lately, of which there is no doubt. So I think it's a really important time for the council. This foundations being laid would be how I describe it really for this 4-year period. I think in the here and now, some quite challenging stuff has been coming towards the council and towards some of you as councillors. There's no doubt about that. And I think it's obviously really important that as councillors you listen to those resident concerns as carefully as you can. But I think that recognising that receiving those challenges are part of your role as public servants, same as they are for officers as public servants as well. But what I'm hoping describing is the work we're doing together to strengthen the council, and so we start to see some really positive things happening over the 4-year period. So the final quality I wanted to bring into the discussion tonight was patience. I think we'll all help each other if we can be purposeful, but also work together patiently as well, because there's a lot going on, a lot coming at us, so let's work together patiently as well going forward if we can. So I hope that sets the scene for the business update you contain with the report, showing so much, giving an idea of just how much is going on, including arranging additional meetings to make sure we get all of our business done. But I hope councillors have had a chance to look at the report, and through you, Chair, happy to take any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Bristow?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I was wondering, Town Clerk, whether on the section 4.2, it says actually tomorrow, East Sussex County Council is launching a public consultation into parking arrangements. Is that still on? Because I've heard some possibilities that it might be not, as far as you know.
We were sent some information earlier this week that described it happening.
Excellent. Well, that's probably as good as it gets.
So, following the very last instructions rule, I'm going to say the last information we were sent was it was proceeding. We haven't been sent anything to defer it. Obviously, if it is deferred, we will let councillors know, and obviously then we will bring these matters to councillors at the appropriate time. I'm very conscious, though, again, after recent weeks, I know how keen councillors are to discuss these issues, so we're really hoping we can bring it to October for council to maybe talk about it.
Councillor Lord?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank the Town Clerk for his efforts during the summer months while we've been in recess. He's worked very, very hard. We're indebted to him, I think, as councillors and his members of staff for how well they've worked to achieve what we wanted to do before the summer recess. The car parking, thank you, Councillor Bristol, about your comments there. I think it's such an important concern to a lot of residents in Seaford. May I suggest, through you, Madam Mayor and the Chair, that we set some kind of a very firm working party up to deal with East Sussex County Council and hold them to account. And at least at every full council meeting, we have something which tells us what they're doing and how they're going about doing it. I think I have every confidence in the Town Council and its members and staff that we shall have this resolved before Easter next year. I know it's going to take a long time, a lot of work. I am confident that, particularly with Louise being on board, we are going to achieve that. So, thank you very much to the Town Clerk and his team for doing a splendid job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lord. Your comments are noted, and when this is considered by full council, there'll be an opportunity of councillors wish to take forward the sorts of things that have been described this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Anthony.
Thank you. Just 2 minor points. Unfortunately, I missed the last meeting, so I wasn't aware. I'm not sure if you. I was looking forward to a communication policy. I thought that was coming through to the council.
Yes, happy to clarify that, Councillor Anthony. On reflection, what we think would be better would be for the councillors to consider this matter after the workshop which I've led. So we've simply deferred it till after you've had the workshop, which I think we need to arm everybody the best we can to come up with the best policy we can. Sorry, that should have been clearer in the report, so I'm happy to clarify.
Yes, please, have you been asked to put it on the report so that it doesn't just get dropped?
Yeah, no, it's not been dropped. It's deferred while you have the workshop, and then we'll work together the policy.
That's great. Thank you very much. And one last minor point, and it's nice to see 5.5, 25 anniversary of Seaford. But I also believe that June 2024 is the 80-year-old anniversary of D-Day, and I just wondered that if it's something that the council wants to participate in, and again, if that's the case, then I should start seeing that in your plan as well.
Yes, I haven't gone further than November in this report, Councillor Angie, you're quite right. But yes, there are plans for D-Day that will be coming through community services and council.
Any further questions? I just wanted to make a comment about the summer recess. Obviously, there was a lot of councillors were still being councillors. So I didn't like the word summer recess, but councillors were still being councillors. We don't have time off. We might have holidays, but we don't stop being councillors for a whole period of time. But yes, obviously the officers were carrying on working through the whole time. But yeah, so the councillors as well. So I just wanted to clarify that for the public. Right, so we are asked to note the contents of the report. Can I please have a proposer, please? Councillor Lord, and a seconder. Councillor Bruce Sturton. All in favour? Thank you. Right, on to number 7, Town Council Working Group reports.
Thank you.
Then on to number 8, outside body representative reports, which is a standard agenda item to enable town councillors appointed as representatives of outside bodies of the town council to give brief verbal updates on relevant business. Activities of the outside body for noting only. So do we have any outdoors? So Councillors Sturton, Lindsay Sturton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Along with Deputy Mayor Councillor Markwell and Councillor Meek, I attended the annual general meeting of the Lewis District Citizens Advice. Citizens Advice, as you know, relies on local grants and local funding to deliver services within the Lewis District. It relies extensively on volunteers within the district. In doing so, it provides a wide range of advice. The message that came out of their annual general meeting is just how much pressure they are under. Pressure as a result of increased demand on their services, as a result of a cost of living crisis and a housing crisis. And they face their own increased funding costs. The meeting, I was somewhat embarrassed actually. The meeting often focused on Seaford just because the Citizens Advice saw Seaford as an exemplar of many of the issues that we face being presented particularly acutely. For example, in relation to housing, I don't know if councillors will be aware that the local housing allowance for those in receipt of it for Eastbourne and Seaford is, well, it's different for different housing needs, but it's £598.35 per month for a one-bedroom, fully contained flat. I don't know if anyone recently has tried to lease a flat of one bedroom for £598.35 a month. That's an indication of the situation they're in. These are not problems that Citizens Advice can solve on their own. The solution to problems like these will require cross-working across a wide range of bodies in government and in the voluntary sector and elsewhere. But I mean, I do hope that Seaford Council can do their bit and continue to support the Citizens Advice in the local area. The services really are necessary at this time.
Thank you. Sally, Councillor Markwell was next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As part of the new administration, I've been attending events with Seaford Chamber of Commerce with my colleagues, Councillor James Meek and Councillor Jeff Rutland. We have been really warmly welcomed by President Carol Trimby and Vice President Neil Richardson. The Chamber recently received the Best Company Supporting Business Award from an SME magazine, and their membership tells a similar story as they clearly encourage networking and support across local businesses, taking care to offer a variety of social events at different times of the day, month, etc. And as local councillors, we recognise the challenges that many within the business community have been facing over the past couple of years, and appreciate the importance of these opportunities for networking, for businesses to both support each other and recover from the impacts of the pandemic. We've enjoyed presentations recently from their local breakfast meetings here actually at the View. I've been to one for the Bonfire Society and also the House of Colour. And we're also really grateful for the assistance from many of the businesses who provide support for community events and activities. So I just want to say thank you to Seaford Chamber of Commerce at this moment.
Thank you. Councillor Bristow.
Thank you, Chair. On Tuesday the 12th of September, I attended the Seaford Ted Local Nature Reserve Management Committee site visit. It was kind of more of an informal meeting rather than a formal meeting. So we went up to Southfield Barn and met each other. There were a lot of different organisations on it: Natural England, Natural Trust, South Downs National Park, Sussex Wildlife Trust and various others. We really just wanted to have a look at some of the issues that are coming forward up there. First of all, starting with the track from Southfield Barn down to the Coast Guard cottages, and starting to think about whether that needs some repair and whose responsibility is it and that kind of thing. We discussed toilet facilities at Southfield Barn, and I think people were quite in favour of exploring options there because there's quite a lot of problems with there not being any toilets, so yes, I don't need to explain, but also the kind of waste that happens round and about in the bushes and its impact on the natural environment. There's a forthcoming planning application, quite a big one, from the National Trust, which should go in Q1 of 2024, about Chinkton Brooks, which is the land down adjacent to the Cuckmere River on the western side, and they propose for it to be returned to salt marsh for the benefit of the environment and potentially for people coming and bird watching and enjoying the benefits of that. But that's something which I expect we as a council will be involved with next year. Finally, we looked at the steps at Hope Gap, which, as we all know, are currently closed for safety reasons, and started to think about the impacts of them staying closed or perhaps reopening and what's going to happen there. Anyway, I just wanted to flag these issues because the majority of them, if not all of them, are going to be taken forward to an extraordinary meeting, which is to be convened sometime late November, early December. And then Councillor Meek, because he's also on it with me, although unfortunately couldn't attend that time, will report after that meeting. So I just wanted to flag that up. Thank you.
Councillor Woomer.
Just a quick feedback. I have a monthly meeting with what's called the Joint Action Group, which is a much wider group across Lewis and Eastbourne. And it's a mixture of professionals, really. So it's councillors, it's police, it's Neighbourhood First, it's the parking enforcement team. So it's very much about local issues, behaviour, parking, traffic, accidents, those kind of road safety, those kind of things. And really just to flag up that the last meeting we had was on the 7th of September when I particularly raised the issue of parking on the seafront with the parking enforcement officer and tried to emphasise that it is very much worse this season with the help of apps that are guiding motorhome users, etc., to the seafront, because they've been told that there is no enforcement, there are toilets, there are water points, etc., etc., and they're making it much easier for people to find us and park with impunity. So sadly, everything I said came true over that very hot weekend and worse. and the parking officer will be getting a feedback from me when we have our next meeting, because we really can't carry on like this. And I'm very pleased to see that Councillor Rutland was able to contact the team at that dreadful weekend when there was nose-to-tail motorhomes in a place where they're not supposed to park. The police, interestingly, are also involved because there's an increased rate of accidents, apparently, because there are so many cars obstructing junctions, etc. So a lot of people are beginning to understand that this is an extraordinary situation we're finding, and that we have to stick up for and represent our residents. And we will be, keeping a regular eye on these monthly meetings to actually give some feedback about the rights and responsibilities of people who visit Seaford and representing the views of the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone else want to do a report?
Could you comment, please, Chair? Thank you. Councillor Bristol, if you want any help renewing the steps at Hope Gap and renewing the steps at Burling Gap, so if you want any technical or structural help, just give me a call and I can soon give you some budget figures and perhaps give you an idea of how we should go forward with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, then on to agenda item number 9, District and County Councillors update report, please. Who would like to do the District Councillors report? Councillor Hurrah.
Not a huge detailed update, but just want to have a look at interesting planning cases that have come forward recently. First one to note is that the Common Club application, which is in our town near the Crouch, of course, so I'm sure many members of the public here might be interested in that one. That was approved by the Government Planning Inspector, and that was approved for a new Common Club on the ground floor, and then above that there to be a number of retirement flats. And there is also the Planning Inspector will also be looking at the case for a new care home next to Florence House, Netherlands. So those two will be coming soon. The Common Club's already approved, and the Florence House is coming soon. Thank you.
Councillor Bristol.
I'll just have a quick update regarding, so we, as district councillors, we were contacted by officers who are looking to pilot the car club scheme in Seaford. So there is one currently operating in Lewis with 7 vehicles, and it's proving popular and useful either for people who don't have a car to have part-time access to a car, or perhaps people who might want to give up their cars because of the running costs or whatever, but still have the occasional use of a car. So the council were thinking, they had inquired about siting it in the Sutton Road car park on the corner there between East Street and Sutton Road. However, we're aware that car park is very well used and very full most of the time. And so we recommended they look into the feasibility of using Richmond Road as a possibility, which is still central, but doesn't get full up in quite the same way. It would be for one petrol car initially, and then if the demand was there and if it was successful, they would be looking to augment that with electric vehicles and perhaps a range similar to Lewis. So I just wanted to say that that's something that's coming forward.
Thank you. Councillor
Just give a very brief County Council report. There's been no meeting, and the next meeting is on the 12th of October. As you probably are aware, right now there is no overall control because everything is just control of the County Council. So there will be interesting times ahead. There is a meeting next week where for the lead member for transport, looking at the petition which probably affects Seaford and Valley New Haven, which is to look at diverting HGVs onto A roads only. So the C7 wouldn't have that. So that's going to the lead member of transport next week. So I shall be attending that to speak in favour of the petition to see if that will be accepted, if that will be. But apart from that, and then the County Council has also done an EV electric vehicle rollout review, which hopefully should come through to the 12th of October full council meeting to see what's happening. And that's it.
Thank you. Right, thank you. Then we go on to agenda item number 10, which is the Seaford Town CCTV arrangements. So to update full council and changes to the town CCTV system and seek approval of this being brought under the town council's ownership.
We have somebody please to speak on that. Do you want to say anything on it?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Chair. My name is Inspector Atkinson from Sussex Police.
Sorry, we're just going to suspend standing orders and you can fire away.
Sorry, I need to just, sorry. Can I have we need to suspend standing orders for the police officer to speak, so we have a proposer and a seconder, all in favour. Thank you.
That's suspended, thank you. Well done about that, Chair.
May I speak now? Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much, Chair, for inviting me to come. The reason I've come tonight is to chat through CCTV and answer any questions that you may have. You may be aware, or you may not be aware, that British Telecom, who help us connect our CCTV cameras, are rising the prices of the transmission lines from the 1st of April next year. We got notified of that was happening back in March. So we've been and had to look at alternative systems, and we've found one. We've found an alternative system which will allow us to connect CCTV cameras up to the cloud and transport images back through Google software, rather than at the moment where we have old-fashioned connection lines. So what we're asking all 22 different partnerships across the county is to consider whether they would like to have their CCTV upgraded. And we're also, in line with national practice, asking us to take their own contract on with the CCTV providers. National areas, we are currently an outlier. Nobody operates like Sussex does. It's probably well overdue in terms of an overview and change, and we would have got here in COVID times, but we're here now. In terms of Seaford's cameras, you have 7. They're not in a very good state. They're all due for replacement. They're all really old technology anyway, and at end of life. So actually the change now that is presented to most of the county is probably very good timing for Seaford. My suggestion is that Seaford consider taking the new system that we have signposted as an option to keep your cameras running should you want to do so. There is a cost for change, which I've already supplied the report on. And just so that you know, I have currently applied to the Home Office for funding, for part funding for that, so that with the hope that every single area, all 22 across the county, get some funding towards those changes. I have had dialogues between the Home Office and I in the last week, which have been positive, and those funding decisions are due out in the next 10 days. So we are hoping to find that we get the funding for the change. I've given you a very high-end overview that the system has to change because your cameras are at end of life. We've found a new system. The new system that we've also found, technology is now cheaper, so actually it will reduce your bills in the long term should you keep CCTV, and I don't often come with the bearer of that news in nearly anything that I do, so actually to be able to stand here and say I found credible service with a good camera that goes to the cloud and it actually reduces your bills, I think is amazing. The new cameras would be good. It works in the same way, so the control room at Lewis headquarters will still be able to see the cameras when the public report incidents. We will look at cameras. Whilst it's your system, we will support the data and governance. As long as you as an area are not using the cameras, which you don't at the moment, you just give us access. As long as you're not accessing them, the data and governance implications are extremely low. So we are that confident that I will carry on running the data and the governance for you, send you the legal paperwork for you to send to East for their legal team to have a look at, and we will support you with the transition. But it is not time consuming going forward to fill out the paperwork. It is one standard piece of paperwork. So if you were thinking that officers may be sucked up in a lot of time, that would be incorrect. If I tell you for 22 areas, it takes me 20 minutes in a year to do the paperwork. That's it. Because actually, all we're doing for when we're using the cameras is for a lawful and legal purpose, because somebody's called in and asked a question or signposted us to a crime in action, and that's why we look at them. We don't tend to look at cameras unless there's a specific reason, probably because I've got 443 of them, and you can imagine it is impossible to look at all 443 in one go. So we tend to flick between cameras when the public tell us something's happening. So I'm here as your technical expert. Sadly, there isn't anything I don't know about this subject, so no question is a silly one, including how it connects to the cloud and all the technology that goes with it, down to the costs. We intend to step away from BT because BT will be raising their prices somewhere between, in the region of 6 to 8 times the current transmission cost. So for 7 cameras in Seaford, probably looking about £10,000 for your transmission cost per year. That would raise to 60 to 80,000, and I would say that we don't have it. All areas don't have that amount of money. But thankfully going to the cloud is a lot cheaper, and the technology just got cheaper. So we propose to change it using the current maintenance providers that we've used for the last 5 years, who are local, know all of the cameras, know about the issues on the seafront and the marine grade paint that is required to keep all the cameras running. So we're proposing that. Every single area has an option. I'm not here to dictate what you should do. I do not advocate switching the cameras off. Crime and antisocial behaviour would rise if you did that. Alternatively, as an area, if you wanted to choose a different system, you are free to do so. I have done the work in the background, and I do recommend the system that we're pushing forward. I won't be going anywhere, so this particular project would stay with me for a while. So it's really down to yourselves. But your cameras are at end of life, and one of them definitely isn't working. So it won't be very long before the rest stop. And in terms of camera value, because a lot of areas have asked me, is CCTV worth it? How do we know it works? How do we, can we get any stats around its usage? It's very, very difficult to do because at the moment it's a standalone system. So a standalone system that is used and operated alongside recorded incidents is fine, but it's not something that I stand here and say, yes, out of 1,000 incidents, I can tell you that 800 of them had a positive outcome. I can't do that because it's standalone, it's not connected. In the future, as things move on, we will look to see if we can connect that internally to really understand that. But I have done quite a in-depth guide, an overview of your incidents and jobs. And what I can tell you is it's not only important in terms of crime, it's actually important in terms of community. So it's not just ourselves that use it. Ambulance service and fire talk to us, and we relay things like missing people, medical episodes to our colleagues from what we can see live time. Recently, there's been quite a lot of news about dog attacks. Last year there was a bad one in Seaford, caught on the camera, and that was used as evidence. So actually, where the current cameras are is where your public and your high footfall in terms of reported incidents are. So I can confidently stand here and tell you all the cameras are in the right locations. My recommendation would be to replace them.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just to say, we've worked alongside you for quite a time, and Paul, one of the people in my team, has been attending your meetings and asking all the difficult questions. This definitely does bring us a saving. It's actually a no change to current position. We have 7 cameras, they don't really work. In fact, one we realised was missing. And so we would have had to replace them anyway. So on the no change, then it's just replacing the cameras. The saving is the electricity usage, which the current cameras, those that are working, are costing a significant amount of money. And in the report it says here that after about 4 years, we think we would save the money cost of putting the new cameras in.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question? Thank you,
Inspector Atkinson, does your system do facial recognition? It's so sophisticated you can do that.
It certainly can, however, we do not use facial recognition, so the National Police Chiefs Council does not support that, and there's several reasons. Whilst it's good, it's not completely foolproof, so that argument is still being had up in Westminster, and we're nowhere near using facial recognition. What the new system does do for me though, is it counts people, it can count traffic, and it can look for things like red jumpers, which isn't facial recognition. So at least another really good thing about the development of the new cameras is that you can look at a huge expanse and zoom in, and the camera will follow an object, which we don't currently have. So there are some really good technical developments. It will also allow us to access it remotely. So at the moment it stands alone in the control room because it's hardwired. When we change over, people with the right level of authority will be able to access that, which will make for sounder decisions from what they can see, because at the moment you can't see that.
Excellent. Well,
Councillor Anthony.
Question. For the past 3 years, there's been a camera situated somewhere, I think, actually at the bottom of Broad Street, which was looking at the wrong, actually it doesn't work, and looking at the wrong direction. Looking towards there. And I've sent endless emails, and we've had problems between several town council officers wanting to do something about it, but the police not responding. And so my question is, when we get these new cameras, how do we prevent this kind of issues? How do we get that support arrangement in place so that kind of maintenance support, where something is not working properly or broken? The town council obviously owns it, but it's managed by the police. And how do we work together to fix that?
Sorry, standing order. I haven't reinstated standing order, so you can answer the question.
Thank you. The technology is so good that there will be an alarm that goes off when it starts to point to the sky. The progression, what I'm asking the councils to do, if you take your contract on, those new cameras will self-alarm and notify the maintenance company that something's gone wrong. They will fix that, and I've been watching what they've been doing in the last 18 months. They're good at that kind of thing. But the difference is that your current cameras are not automated, so nobody knows when they've gone rogue and they're pointing at the sky unless we do a physical check. The new system will send an alert to the camera maintenance people, who should then come out and deal with that straight away. And if the council wants to have a regular meeting with them, however that may be, 1 month, 1 week, every 6 months, then they can hold them to account if it's not working. But it shouldn't happen as much because they're automated and come back.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Bristow?
What's the overall reliability of the new system that areas who do use it have found? Is it better than or comparable to the existing system in terms of outages and that kind of thing?
Well, it's a different camera make, it's a different company, and I can't really give you like for like in terms of, because that would be really fair. What you've got now is 20 years old, so there really isn't any comparison. But we understand that the warranty on the cameras are at least 5 years, and if your last cameras or anything to go by, that should be at least 20 years. And hopefully we'll go with it from there. But the camera is good, the technology is good. All of the areas we're invited to have a look at, Gatwick Manor Royal have already got their cameras up and running. They were my pilot scheme, and I wanted to understand the proof of concept that the system worked and it worked well. So what we did is we invited all the areas to watch the cameras, and we were brave that we live streamed what was being live streamed to us twice. So actually the digital resolution should have fallen down, and yet the imagery was crystal clear. That's how confident I am in the new system.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dubas.
Thank you. Could I ask you, is it possible to use that for parking enforcement? For example, camper vans on the seafront, please.
Red vision could be used for parking enforcement. However, you would need to have a parking enforcement team. You'd have to have someone that worked the same way as Brighton and Hove. The only area in the county that does parking enforcement with CCTV cameras is Brighton and Hove, and it is a revenue stream. So, if you've got your cameras up and running, my suggestion would be talk to Brighton and Hove, because they may be able to help you. They have their own control centre. We went to Surrey to have a look at what they're doing, and they have something very similar where areas have gone to one location and asked them to monitor their cameras, especially in terms of whether or not they want to look at revenue building. So it's not impossible, but not within our current agreement.
Thank you. Councillor Lord, did you have your hand up again?
Yeah, just one further. Just being inspected, we've actually trialled ANPR at one of our district council. We've tried it at Upfield, ANPR on a car park. It works absolutely brilliantly. It actually sends out a ticket for parking more than 3 hours or something like that. It was absolutely brilliant. I understand what you say it's got to be enforced with people feet on the ground. So it's actually used in Sussex, in Wealdon. Just, yeah, information.
Councillor Cannon.
Thank you. Just a quick one. When is this likely to be introduced? Because there's some cameras hanging off the Martello toilets at the moment, and I'm presuming that those would be replaced, and that would be part of the new system when it comes in.
So the Martello toilet ones is not one of these 7.
That's not?
No, we have, in here we have about 20 other cameras, of which the Martellos are, and they are completely separate to the 7 that the officers talking about.
Yeah, because there was a point in the note here about maybe some of the cameras down on the sorts, is it? That
yeah.
May be uprated or upgraded to this system.
So no, so that's quite complex,
Yeah.
and we did discuss it very, very loosely. What we want to do is get the 7 cameras up and running, and then we can look at, you could link to one of them down at the source, because there is one of the 7 down at the source, but it starts getting very complicated. So, because the maintenance costs are very low for the 20 cameras, we might not want to join the 2 up together.
Okay.
But definitely you're right about Martello toilets, we need to look at those.
So just another question then. The 7 cameras of this new system, where those could be monitored anywhere on a telephone, couldn't they?
I'll just answer 2 of your questions. The new system must start on the 1st of April, because that's when BT put up their prices.
Okay.
In terms of the 7 cameras being monitored from anywhere, possibly in the future, but in the first year, the only place they'll be monitored from is the control room at Sussex Police Headquarters. While we understand what the new technology does, while we understand who can access it, it's how it's accessed which changes. So instead of me having a standalone computer just to look at them, CCTV, I will be able to access that through the internet, through several layers of security. But at all times, I will understand who's accessed it and when, and who they were.
Okay, thank you. So where do the other 20 cameras that belong to Seaford Town Council, where are they monitored?
So we have monitoring, we have a tablet that we can monitor those cameras.
There's no real-time monitoring, presumably.
No, there isn't.
The standing orders are suspended,
Yes,
may I?
yes, I've checked. You can, yes, please.
Thank you very much. May I just say that you've got to be very careful. I think Brighton, going down a revenue approach for parking, this is Orwellian and this is dystopian future. Now, I was privy to the CCTV system when it was first introduced, because I'm that old, and I have to say that CCTV was to prevent, it was to assist the fear of crime, reduce the fear of crime, and positively detect crime. Yeah? So the Brighton has now taken that over, and they're doing it for road traffic offences in the bus lanes, and now apparently parking as a revenue stream. What I would say is that ANPR cameras, when they were introduced, were at ACPO level, Association of Chief Police Officer level, were for prevention and detection of crime. Yeah, not for ULEZ, not for parking, not for minor road traffic offences. And I do counsel you, when you sort out your new system, is that you do seriously reflect on whether you want to go down this Big Brother route. That's all I'll say. But I'm very disappointed with the way ANPR cameras are starting to be used. That was prevention and detection of crime. That's how they got put up in the first place. Now, of course, it's reasonable people parking on WO lines where they go and get their milk. That is, to me, is wrong. Anyway, thank you for the indulgence.
Thank you. Any further questions? Right, I'm going to now reinstate standing orders. Can we have a proposal, please? Councillor Lord, seconded Councillor Eastern. All in favour? Thank you. Right, so we are asked to note and discuss the content of the report, to agree to taking on the CCTV system within the town from Sussex Police as per report 77/4/23, resulting in a new digital wireless CCTV system under the town council's ownership. Do we have a proposer? Councillor Lord, and a second Councillor Bournemouth, and then all in favour.
Chair, thank you.
Right, agenda item number 11, to present details of a petition received from the Stop Offence campaign.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm very, very grateful to the petitioners. It was great to hear from one of them earlier on in public participation this evening. I think what would be helpful is to be clear what does note the detailed petition mean? Because that's what our council does in accordance with our current petitions policy. And I think the best interpretation of noting in this case is that going forward, once a petition is noted, then going forward, a council is mindful of it. So it will become a document the council will be mindful of in any decision making relevant to that petition going forward. In the same way, mindful of the neighbourhood plan or other such things as well in our decision making processes. So that's what note means in the context of the motion. But you will also see that we've also listened to a very helpful proposal that was given to us around making further changes to our petition policy, really so that we can more easily note and be mindful of petition going forward in a slightly more user-friendly and faster way than the current policy allows us to do. So you'll also see within the report the suggestions that are made there about amending our own policy going forward as well as noting the details of the petition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do you have questions? No? Okay. Yes, no?
Can I just make a comment, if I may? Thank you. Obviously, as everyone knows, before I was elected to the council, I was involved with matters at the Crouch, and I was part of creating a petition, and people who were in the last administration would have heard me speak probably 3, 4, however many times about why can't this be heard? And the reason that I kept doing that was because I felt so passionately that our residents' voices should be heard because they felt strongly on an issue. You know, in the future it could be any number of issues. And I really welcome this proposal that we have a standing item on the agenda, as they do, for example, at Lewis District Council, Newhaven, and in various other places, which, so even if things move on, but it still means that that body of residents' voices and opinions will be heard and sort of form part of our record and allow us to do what the town clerk has described and being mindful of something going forward. So, I really welcome that. Thank you for putting it on.
Thank you. Then we are asked to note the details of the petition, to approve the relevant policies being updated to this effect, namely the Town Council's petition policy and agendas and minutes policy. I'm going to take them together. So can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Bruce Sturton and a seconder, Councillor Lindsay Sturton, and then all in favour? Thank you very much.
Carried, Chair, thank you.
Agenda item number 12, to provide information for full council to consider floodlights, adverts and gates at the crash.
Thank you, Chair. The councillors will already have heard a number of resident contributions and participation this evening, and they've also had a number of items raised by residents circulated to them ahead of the meeting this evening. And I think as officers, we were really conscious of the need to bring this item to this meeting, and really to a meeting where there would be meeting time to consider these matters carefully. So that is what we've presented to you this evening. The report that's been written for you focuses primarily on the three matters at hand this evening, rather than any more broader issues around the crash. But it has been careful to not only explain, to share Lewes District Council's decisions relating to planning permission for these items, but also has referred councillors to the objections made to these proposals by the Corporate Club within the body of the report, so that councillors have an opportunity to also study those objections should they wish. I'm conscious councillors may have some matters they wish to discuss related to this motion, so I'm happy to hand back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Meek.
This isn't a question. But these are comments. I am on Lewes Planning Committee, but when this item came to Lewes Planning, I wasn't allowed to talk on it, or vote on it, or even be in the room when it was discussed, because it could have been perceived as prejudicial. So therefore I couldn't cast my vote according to how I wanted to. What is interesting about this is that although Lewes District Council have passed these planning applications, we are the landowners, and we can decide for ourselves, irrespective of those applications being passed, what we do about that as the landowners. So it's in our remit to do that. I understand exactly what the town clerk is saying about wanting the time to discuss it and wanting to bring these things forward. However, personally, I feel that notwithstanding everything that has been brought to, in the meeting tonight and with emails before the meeting, I think there's an awful lot of history here where mistakes perhaps have been made, but also things have been let go in the past by previous administrations going back quite a number of years, and historical legacies from another administration. And I do think that I would prefer myself not to actually vote on any of this tonight, because I think that we need more time, more officer time, more going into the past time to look at some of these things. If we are to decide on some of these things tonight, I would have an objection to some of them. I would want to change the some of those what would be passed through. So I will leave it there, and I maybe would be able to talk later, depending on what maybe other councillors say. Is that fair to just put my first speech there? Thank you.
Councillor Vaughan.
Thank you, Chair. The only thing I will agree with Councillor Meek on is that this has been going on for a very long time, and we've had plenty of discussion on it for a very long time.
Yeah.
We've discussed the floodlights, we've discussed the advertising boards in great depth, and we've all agreed that we would wait for the planning commission, or whether it was refused or accepted, and then we would make a decision on that purpose. We've got it in front of us. It's been granted planning permission. This is what we said we would do if it got permission. If it was objected to, then we wouldn't be having this discussion, because that would be it. It's been accepted. Not quite what the football club wanted with the floodlights. It's not as many days as they initially requested. So that is what happened at planning. They didn't get everything they wanted, but they've got some of what they wanted. And now we should be agreeing it, because that is what we said that we would do. Thank you.
Councillor Divas.
Thank you.
I became a councillor because I wanted to represent the voice of the people. And I think the residents have made it quite clear that they object to a lot of this. And I'm mindful of the adverts that are in a dangerous position. If you've been up there, you can see that they're not in the best of states. Now, why can't the football club go back to doing the adverts like they used to do, where they bring out the soft adverts during the match and take them away again? I don't think we should be approving adverts, regardless of whether planning permission is there or not. And whatever discussions you've had in the past, that was a previous council, not the current council. We need to listen to the residents and be mindful of what the residents are telling us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brewster.
I found that really interesting and challenging topic. The first thing I would say, 2 points to make. The first is that as the landowner, we have an obligation to be reasonable and to make a reasonable decision in the context of planning applications that have been approved. One view of reasonableness is that it would be unreasonable to make a decision on the basis that on the basis of objections that have already been heard by a relevant authority. So, whilst I absolutely accept and understand Councillor Dubois' point, if those objections have already been heard, then it's perhaps difficult for us to use those as a basis for any decision that we might make. The second point, which is a bit more longer term and builds on what Councillor Meeks has introduced, is that a lot of the problems or issues around the use of the crouch and Seaford Town Football Club are in relation to transparency and understanding of the rights and responsibilities relating to the use of the ground itself. Our responsibilities, the football club's responsibilities, residents' concerns, it's very complicated. I would recommend that we create a working party to sort out the legal and ethical rights and equitable rights and responsibilities of all the relevant parties and get it regularised as soon as possible, with the power to instruct solicitors if appropriate, and get it sorted before the beginning of the next football season. So that would be enable us to demonstrate that we are getting involved as landowners, being actively involved in managing the ground and dealing with the relevant relationship issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Comments? Councillor Bristol was first.
I don't mind going on.
Okay. You had your hand up first.
I'm sorry, I was busy writing things. Right, fine. Thank you very much. Right, so I'm obviously a Seaford Town councillor for the Seaford South ward, and I'm very pleased to see these important ward issues come to be discussed at full council. It became apparent to me last year that unfortunately Seaford Town Football Club were exceeding their planning consent, and thank the officers of the Town Council and the residents for bringing that to attention, and the football club for acting on that and applying to get things sorted. The football club bring a lot of good things to our town. They've got many different teams, youth teams, women's teams, teams for people with special needs, as well as the main men's teams. So there is no doubt that they have a really important place in our town, and I would like to emphasise that. There living close to the Crouch and having been very involved in things, it became very apparent to me that there was a culture of better ask forgiveness than permission. And I do not think that is an appropriate way as a council that we should go forward with our green spaces. For the floodlights, yes, they were considered at planning, but there are secondary implications on people who not only use the Crouch, but live around and about, which are not necessarily planning considerations that we as a council need to consider. These are, as well as the light spillage, the parking issues, I have reports of people parking across disabled houses, drives and others. The incidence of foul language, which prevents families with young children using the playground adjacent, and which I personally have witnessed a lot. If the football club were here, and I hope they watch this at some time, I would publicly call on the committee to address this. But the floodlights, as they are, they were already exceeding their quota, and I think it's probably quite fair to go ahead with honouring the planning in that respect. Initially they did, as Councillor Warman said, ask for, actually it was unlimited number of occasions, and they've reduced that down to something which is commensurate with their needs. So I must recognise that. However, coming on to the issue of advertisements, it's given local users, I say Crouch users, people who visit the Crouch, use it for their recreation and well-being, and it's not just professional football. Lots of people use that field for various things. There's nature there, people use it for walking their dogs, families use it for playing football, so on and so forth. Considerable unhappiness that our beautiful local green space with a row of majestic mature trees to the south side has been permanently in the view by the proliferation of these advertisements, which have been put up without our permission as a council. The fact that a relatively new and inexperienced planning applications committee at Lewis gave permission was, in my opinion, quite shocking given the opposition to the adverts. Not only are they unsightly, but last winter in the high winds they blew off and were found strewn around the Crouch field, often bent at 90 degrees. These are pieces of sheet metal which could have frankly seriously injured someone. So as part of planning, one of their conditions is to attach them firmly to the pitch surround barrier, which is that metal fence that goes around, which they have done. Excellent. However, anyone with a bit of an engineering background will be able to tell me, where does a structure fail? It fails at its weakest point. You put a sail on it, you attach it firmly, you get a strong wind, you increase that moment, where is it going to fail? The advertisement's probably going to stick to that structure because of the U-bolts, but the metal spokes, which are easily removed by a football or somebody with bad intentions taking it out, that's going to start flying around the Crouch if we start getting gales. We were quite concerned in the last few days. So I think as a council we need to be really, really careful with this decision for safety reasons, because I do not want, as a ward councillor, someone coming to me and saying my child has had this hit me on the head. We need to be really confident that that isn't going to happen, in my opinion. So for too long this council as a referee of the shared community asset has said play on football club, advantage football club. Now we need to enable the football club. As I said, they're a really important part of our community, important to many people. But that Crouch is important to lots of other people for similar and other reasons too, as you will have seen in the documentation, or you can see by going down there on any day of the week. I'll respectfully contradict Councillor Borman and say that actually we haven't discussed this as a council properly. It didn't go to the Planning and Highways Committee of Seaford Town Council, and it hasn't been discussed like this in the main. And part of the reason I would agree with Councillor Meek is that we don't have, whilst I thank the officers for the report, we don't have crucial information in there about the legal basis and the foundation framework which is around the Crouch. Things like, what are the lease clauses? Do they have tenure of the pitch or the land around it? On what basis does the football club use the pitch? It's on a pay-to-play basis. So, for example, things like the advertisements going around being there 24/7, we're effectively giving them a free advertising service. As a town council, we have assets and, for example, our concessions on the seafront or anywhere else, we have lease agreements with them, as we do with the football club for their clubhouse and the stand, whereby a rent is payable and things are regulated to a certain degree through those lease clauses. We have nothing like that on either the pitch surround barrier, which is in a state of disrepair and I would say is unsafe, or the adverts. So we as a town council, we don't get any revenue from those adverts. The taxpayers don't get anything back for suffering the adverts being there 24/7 when the first team or even the other teams only play there once or twice a week. So I'd like a bit of perspective in this and thinking, well, if that's happening at the Crouch, what's to stop me setting up a company and putting up loads of adverts around the Martello fields, charging for them, and council, you know, I could say, well, you do it at the Crouch, why don't you let me do it at the Martello fields, or the Salts, or some of our other green spaces? So I urge you to think about it like that as well. I think we need more information about this. We need to understand what the legals are, we need to understand the risk, and also who's responsible for that pitch surround barrier. We never gave it permission. It's been put up, apparently the football club have it, but it's on our land, so if an accident happens, who's going to get sued? I don't know the answer to that. You know, I think we need more information, and I think we need to be, we've got this opportunity here to consider this and go forward in a really sensible and robust way, but we need to do that in being well informed. Very quickly on the gates, they've been there for a long time. There was a regular pattern of closing the gates Tuesday nights and Saturday afternoons, which was fairly well tolerated by most in the immediate vicinity. Those times have now started to be changed due to the different requirements of matches. So there's this kind of in the community not knowing when they're going to be open and closed. The football club in their defence have actually been quite good at putting notices on those gates and putting it on Facebook, but unfortunately not everyone looks there, and also we don't have a formal agreement. I don't believe we ever have. Please prove me wrong if I am. The gates themselves, they're needed, allegedly, to be closed for the men's first team to comply with the FA requirements. Now that's maybe once a week, once a fortnight. The gates remain there 24/7. The local people walking through those Twittons nowadays don't know if there's someone with bad intentions behind that gate going to slam it closed on you, mug you, or worse in that Twitton. There is a public safety implication. And it was quite ironic that they were all renewed and made bigger and better early last year when we had cases such as the Sarah Everard case and other notable cases of murder and such against women. So I really think we need to take a proper look at this. I know it's something that's been dragging on. I hear the frustration of some of the councillors, but I do believe it's something we need to get right going forward, not just for the Crouch, but for our green spaces as a whole. Thank you for bearing with my long piece.
Thank you, Councillor Bristow. Councillor Antonini.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I didn't intend to speak, but I took umbrage with Councillor Jubas's statement that we are all here as councillors to represent people of Seaford. But people of Seaford isn't 500 petitions. People of Seaford is 25,000 people, sometimes the silent majority. And I know there were many petitions, many people had petitions on either side. So I don't think certainly anyone maybe voting or deciding to support the football club isn't not the sign of people of Seaford. People of Seaford isn't just residents of crash concerns. Now, not that I'm actually on my feet, I must well say what I think. Yes, I am going to do that. I've been in Seaford for 30 years, and in that time we've lost many things in the town. And every time people complain that there's nothing in Seaford, this is Seaford Town Football Club. We should be proud of the football club and support that club. Yes, it's not perfect. There are many things it's done wrong. I mean, I have a child who plays football with Premier Sports, but they can't use that field, and I'd like to see it more open. But what I want us to do as a town council is to work with the football club. Let's work together and support them for our town. You talk about making money. The football club isn't a business, it's a charity.
No, it's not.
It's a limited company. It's a limited company, but that's what it does. It's not a business. It's out there to represent, and so we should be doing things to support football clubs. So I think what we should be doing is working together with the football club and trying to see how we can bridge. Yes, I have listened to the concerns raised by residents here tonight. Some of the suggestions I think we should take on board, like having a timetable for when the floodlights will be used. So there are some useful suggestions we can take on board. But rather than just throw everything out, I think I'm employing my colleagues, please, let's be rational. Let's sit down and see how we can balance the requirements of both sides, both to please the residents and also to make sure that we don't lose the football club. That is vital to our town. So please, let's try and work together with both sides, not just one side.
Thank you. Councillor Sturton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors will have had me declare interest tonight. My two children play for their respective youth teams. But quite apart from that, I want Seaford Town Football Club to flourish. It's an asset to the town. I hear what Councillor Adenici says. But if you see the youth teams training up and down the house, it's not just one or two teams. There's different teams training as far as the eye can see. It's an important asset for youth services, and I think we want to keep sight of that and of the need to have a flourishing football club in Seaford. But having said that, and I'm sorry, am I going to interrupt you? Having said all that, we've heard from councillors, we've heard from members of the public both this evening and in correspondence. Councillor Meek talks of mistakes, legacies and dropped balls. If I understand correctly some of the concerns of residents, this may or may not be, their concerns may or may not be justified. We just can't know that right now, right here, right now. But the concern seems to be, if I could simplify, that it's not clear what the football club is and is not empowered to do under their relevant leases and permissions. And it seems to be at least a concern that they are, at certain points, benefiting from that uncertainty. And whatever one thinks the football club should or should not be entitled to do, that uncertainty is not good governance. And so, I would like to support Councillor Ruth Sturton on proposing the need for a working group to look into this. But in a way that doesn't prevent the football club moving forward in the meantime. And so I would like to propose some amendments. The first one is an additional recommendation, which is for the, call it recommendation 6, for the setting up of a council working group. To work in partnership with officers, but recognise that this is an area where councillors can and should take some initiative here. And while it does its work, while it just assesses what the football club has been given permission to do, what are the limits of those permissions, what are the rights and obligations of the council, while we look into that, I would propose amending proposal or recommendations 2 and 3 to give those permissions for the season with active managing of compliance with the conditions. So if there's whatever, I can't remember off my head the number of flood nights we've approved, but maybe, ensuring that whatever the terms are, that these are complied with, to ensure that concerns about health and safety are complied with. Similarly with proposal 4, for proposal 5, I would approve 5 with operational details of advertisements, floodlights, barriers and gate closures to be subject to the oversight and input of a working group. And, just to continue in chronological order, to add a proposal 6, which is for the setup of a working group. Now, if if one can establish clarity on this, I do see great prospects for better relations between local residents and the football club. I mean, hearing several residents speak and in correspondence with me, although they have concerns, they too want to see the success of the club. There does seem to be space, there does seem to be scope for a wider partnership here. I am optimistic, but the foundation of my optimism is that we can first get clarity and we can make sure that such conditions that are associated with the use of the football ground are complied with. Any further permissions that are needed can be considered explicitly and given if that is, in our judgment, in the interest of Seaford. But I mean, to start with, getting good governance and making sure there are no more mistakes, legacies, and drops, bubbles, to quote Councillor Mead, would seem to me the basis of a way forward, and so I propose these amendments.
Thank you. Councillor Lord.
Right. First of all, I'm disappointed there's nobody here from Seaford Town Football Club. Absolutely appalled by the fact that Seaford Council is literally carrying the ball or carrying the can or taking a kicking. There's nobody here from Seaford Town Football Club. They should be sat there and they should be representing themselves in an open forum. So I'm absolutely disgusted with the fact that they are not here. It's very, very, very poor. I'm absolutely appalled that Seaford Town Council is taking a kicking, pardon the pun, over something which we are trying to manage. It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. That's the first point. The second point is that the three items, floodlighting, adverts and gates, they have been given planning permission by Lewis District Council, and it's been endorsed by Ian Fitzpatrick. Ian Fitzpatrick is one of the finest deputy chief executives probably in the country. And if he says it's good enough for him, it's good enough for Lewis District, it's good enough for Seaford Town Council, and it's probably good enough for the country. I have so much time for such a knowledgeable, in-depth treasury employee of Lewis District Council. It's absolutely fantastic. I have to come to another point which is brought up by Councillor Briscoe regarding advertising. I think as a matter of public safety, once a year the advertising hoarding should be inspected by a structural engineer to make sure they're fit for purpose. And I think Seaford Town should do that as a matter of course, that once every 12 months we get a report saying that the fixings are fit for purpose for the advertising. That comes as a matter of course, and I think our insurers, which is Zurich Mutual, I do lots with Zurich Mutual, they will probably insist on that anyway. But I think it should be proactive and actually do that. The other thing I want to say, and I hate saying this right because I'm contradicting myself by the same thing. So we say the only place in Seaford where there's advertising is it's the football ground. But actually fact, you go to the rugby ground, they're all over the rugby grounds.
No, it's not. It's clear.
On the salts.
Sorry, we need to let just...
So if on the salts, then therefore they can be on the football ground. We take them from the salts, we take them from the rugby ground. So there are two places where we've actually agreed they're in one place. They're actually in two places. Perhaps that needs to be or clarified as to why we're one place do it and one place we don't do it. So that's very, very important. And the final thing is that with regards to public safety with the gates, I think the gates should be locked open at all times apart from the football match to prevent any misdoings or any antisocial behaviour. With regards to a working party, I've been involved on the motel toilets, and eventually come round after all this time over basically what we wanted in the first place. So, and to challenge a planning application legally, I don't think this town council has got the finances available to go to court to challenge a planning application. If it does, it's got some very, very strong grounds. I don't think the council here or representatives of the council have the strong ground to statutory oppose a planning application. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Hirokis, you haven't spoken yet.
No, just a question of clarity on that final point, is that as landowners, are we not able to make a decision irrespective of the planning application? Is that kind of a point of clarity on that?
Short answer is yes, but clearly councillors has been raised in this meeting. In reaching such a decision, councillors need to be mindful of the reasonableness of their decision in so doing so.
Councillor Bristow.
Yeah, I would like to say that, following on from that, if we're worried about, we don't need to challenge any planning applications, we need to just consider this in the additional strands as landowner, which we have authority to do so. So planning is one of those. We've also got a legal framework there, we've got width, and then we've got all the other things that we do as a council, like listening to the football club, listening to the other users of that space, and so on and so forth. If anyone's worried about money challenging a planning application, I'd be much more worried about being sued for some sort of damages, and worse still, a legal challenge about disposal of the land, which, unless we're quite careful, things might be starting to go down that way if we, as we currently are in a situation where other groups cannot hire that pitch, where there is permanent assemblies around it, and as we wanted last year, prevention of public access. So I think this is actually very small fry compared to something that might come to us down the line if we don't take our due diligence and be prudent now. So that's what I'm going to say.
Chair, in terms of the use of the pitch, the matters being considered here are the adverts around the pitch, floodlights and the gates. Those are the matters being considered this evening. With regard to the points that have been made about disposal of land, obviously the council take that very, very seriously, and we are working with Lewes District Council to put in place workable arrangements around other organisations being able to use the pitch. So it is not the council's intention for such a disposal of land to take place.
Glad to hear that.
Thank you. I have a question that was raised by members of the public. Obviously, it was already been brought up about publicised dates when floodlights are to be on, to let residents know. And then another question that was raised also was that the adverts, it was a comment statement, the adverts are illegal and public liability risk. Does the insurance cover this?
Well, again, to be clear about these matters, the council is very mindful of public safety on the Crouch, and mindful that as owner of the land in general, that the council is very mindful about public safety on the Crouch. I'm getting people shaking their head and Gary, but that doesn't mean that that's not the case. But in terms of in terms of the safety, so the council recognises those responsibilities, and clearly anything that happens in that space we have to be mindful of in terms of risk to the public. So clearly going forward, the council would need to make sure that any of the items approved in this, should these motions be approved, are implemented safely. And that's a general safety duty we would have as a council, and we think that's the most important steps for us to take. Because clearly, as has been covered in the discussion, some potential liabilities may fall to the council if accidents should fall people on the Crouch. But that's true generally about the space, regardless of these items. That's the general position. But more importantly, we have a duty to make sure that's the case in any case. So it's not so much about thinking about who's responsible, but it's about how will it be prevented. And that's where the priority needs to lie.
Okay, I want to start wrapping this up. So Councillor Dubas, you've already spoken once, but do you want to speak again?
Thanks. Right, yes, you talk about planning permission, but what's the consequence of the club not abiding by planning permission? We've already heard that they haven't, they're running the floodlights more than they should, they've advertised more than they should. What are the consequences, please?
Well, just to cover that again, clearly as has been covered in the discussion, the town council were when the council were aware of the football club not obtaining necessary planning permissions, we instructed them to get the planning permission. Now, again, I'm not going to go into full detail on planning law that other people may be able to speak about more eloquently, but the actions of Lewis District Council were quite normal in a planning permission situation. Retrospective planning applications being considered without the matter being taken down is quite normal, although a planning authority would have the power to remove those items should they wish. The Lewis District Council did not choose to exercise such a power and were happy to consider those matters retrospectively, as they do with many other planning matters that they consider all of the time. But clearly the town council as landowner would not wish a situation where the football club is not following proper practice, and it's our job to make sure that they do, or to do all we can to make sure that they do.
Councillor Bridge, you've already spoken twice.
I asked what the consequences were, but you've not really answered that.
In consequences in respect of
Retrospective answer, would you mind standing up?
In terms of the planning permissions, there are two sets of parties with an interest, I would say, in practice, whatever the legal position. Clearly, Lewis District Council as a planning authority should be interested in planning in their own conditions not being met. But meanwhile, the town council, as landowners, are aware of those conditions, are requiring the football club to meet them.
Okay.
Right, does anybody else want to speak? Because I want to start wrapping this up. Councillor Bridge,
Can I say something positive, actually? So, with regards to safety, last year we had the metal tied on with plastic cable ties. No wonder that it came off from the structure. Now we've got better U-bolts that they're using, so it's more secure to that particular structure, although as I said before, that I have concerns about the structure, and I think Councillor Lord had a really good idea that we have safety inspections, but I think it should be more than once a year. Now last year before I was a councillor, and earlier this year before I was a councillor, I met with the various 2 to 3 chairs of the football club, and we were discussing the potential for replacing that pitch surround barrier, and we'd even got so far as designs and things to make it into a structure which is fit for purpose and more permanent. And obviously having been involved with things in the community, one of the first things when the fence came to light was people said, why don't we just get a better pitch surround barrier? Because that provides quite a lot of differentiation between, for example, when training's happening and the public is still allowed in, you've still got that little bit of separation which allows the football to go on relatively unencumbered and people to use the space. Obviously the first team games are different, but that was quite well tolerated. So I would say that whilst we're discussing all the safety stuff, there is a way forward in terms of improving that structure in the slightly longer term, not so much be that long term. And I think that's something we should think about working towards with the input of the football club as a council, and actually getting to something that is safe, properly safe and fit for purpose, and that they're happy with.
Right, thank you very much. Councillor Meek, and then that is the last question or comment.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just one point, the town clerk encouraged us to have patience at the beginning of this session. I would suggest that if we want to be patient, we could discuss this more fully, and we could put a time limit on it and say that if there was a working group, it could be that they had to come up with a solution and work with people within the next 3 months. I'd like to remind us that we are actually at the beginning of the football season anyway. So this is going to go ahead nonetheless like it is for the next 6 to 8 months, I would suggest, because changing something halfway through a season probably won't happen. So I would suggest we do have time, if we're patient, to sort this out. I know that some councils might throw up their arms and say, oh gosh, working parties, not again. This is a very serious problem, however, and we want to get this kind of thing right. There are an awful lot of issues here. I mean, I do support Councillor Lord in what he said. There are adverts on the rugby club. I mean, they've been there for ages. They're right up high. They can be seen from the whole of the sorts. The sponsors of the rugby club are there permanently. So we need to think about that. Another thing I'd like to say is, on looking at the playback of that planning meeting, one of the councillors did say, why can't they just only put the advertisements up for the matches? And I have to say that one of the planning officers on Lewis District Council brushed that away pretty swiftly, without any further discussion. It's a very valid, actually, a very valid point, that is a solution to a problem that residents face, but the football club faces as well. They can have their adverts during the matches, but why should they be there for the rest of the time when someone said 24/7? This is a real issue. If they were only there temporarily, they'd only have to be canvas on bungee cords. There wouldn't be a problem of them blowing away and causing all sorts of damage. These are things that the working party could consider. I would urge us to kind of think along those lines. This is quite a big decision to get to vote on something which is then going to last in perpetuity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. Oh, Councillor Honey, we haven't spoken, but because I really...
I think before members do make a decision, Chair, Madam Mayor, I think they should actually try and watch a few of the senior matches themselves. There are plenty of opportunities coming along in the coming months. Go down on the Saturday afternoon, see what you're looking at. Go to an evening match, see what you're looking at. And then you can actually look at some of the problems of some of the issues with the alleyways and the gates and the advertising and the floodlights. And you can make some bit more considered situations. This has started sounding a little bit theoretical in a way. But we've now, as Councillor Nick was saying, started this evening, let's have a look at it, and we can go down. There's plenty of opportunities for members to have a look and pay us. I don't know how much it is to get in, but it's not an awful lot of money, and to try to appreciate what it's all about. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, now we have some...
You should give us free tickets, shouldn't we?
Anyway.
I don't think we'll put that down as a motion.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So yes, so Chair.
Point of order, Chair. Point of order.
Yes.
I would like to propose a motion as well. So.
Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, I would like to propose a motion as well.
Yeah.
Can I? So my motion will be to actually approve 2, 3, and 4 for a period of 12 months only, and then we can review that as a council. So it's to go ahead and because right now, without any approval, they don't have an approval. So we'll be to approve just to put for a period of 12 months, subject to review, and then we can then decide if we want to have a working group. That's fine. So that is an approval for 12 months only. So on 2, 3, and 4, I'm fine.
Okay. That sounds quite similar to Councillor Sturton's motion, which was for the season. Is that right?
Season. Okay.
Would you be happy, Councillor Adderley, due with a period of say 9 months?
Okay, that's fine. But I'm fully fine.
If we take 9 months, 9 months is the motion you want to put forward, then we don't have to worry so much about exactly when the season ends. Just in case there's postponements and couples and all these sorts of things, then we start to stumble over whether the season's ended or not. Okay, so Chair, we have those amendments to 2, 3, and 4. Which is to add initially for a period of 9 months, subject to further review. Yes. Is that a satisfactory expression of those motions?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the 2, 3, and 4 amended. So I'm going to take Councillor you're seconding that motion in terms of physical contribution now. So 2, 3, and 4 amendments are seconded.
Sorry, Chair, can I come back? Something else I would like to see included in the amendments was one of the suggestions about publishing where possible. Are we able to incorporate that into floodlights?
Yeah, I think that we want to, if we're setting up a working group, and obviously in terms of enforcement of the motions, those things are within scope for that work to be taken forward. So I think we'll take it forward in that guise. So that's 2, 3, and 4. I think that the new 6 was setting up the working group. Okay. I think technically I might take that as 5 because you want to amend 5 mindful of the working group, and you can't really do that until you set the working group. If that makes sense.
Well, final point. When this working party is set up, after this 1 day, 9 months, 12 months, whatever it's going to be, the decision is made. We're on to another 9 months, and another 6 months, and another 3 months. We have to have a guillotine, and may I suggest for you, Mr Town Clerk, that you set a date up at the end or before the beginning of the football season next year, which starts in basic August of next year. A decision has to be made.
Okay.
Either on a majority view one way or the other. One way we go with it, what the working party said, or the alternative, we stay what we've got here. Because we're going to be in another 6 months, another 3. We can't keep going on. This has been on for about 3 or 4 years now. We've got to make a firm decision. One way that we agree with this, or one way we don't agree with it. And if we don't agree with it, what are we going to do?
All right.
So we have to make a firm decision with a guillotine. So may I suggest that if you want to make 2, 3 and 4, we have them, and 5 is the working party, a decision has to be made before the beginning of the next football season.
Okay.
Otherwise we'll be going on forever.
So that would make 6 is a new 5. Setting up a working group of councillors to consider these matters and to report to full council within 9
Can I also suggest that we involve something from Seaford Town Football Club as well, because they're the ones we're working for, and there's nobody here.
Well,
It's in 5 with the football club and other users.
yeah.
Well, they're not here, they've never been here.
So, all right. So was that a reasonable description of the working group for a motion for the working group?
Can that include the Crouch concerned people as well, not just the councillors and the football club?
The working group will be of councillors. We already have a stakeholders group set up to engage with the users. Yeah. So this is a separate thing, but clearly, I mean, again, I think that it might be helpful to. So I think what might be helpful would be to maybe use the 5, which has become 6. We might ask them to also kind of confirm the arrangements for the working group. That might be the sensible way forward. So we can make sure that we're all happy with the working group going forward.
It was also discussed, and I'm not sure whether it's in the conversation, about the trial gate closures was with number 5.
Yes.
But in 4.8, it was suggested that there was a trial period for the gate. So I just want to make sure that's included in here as well, please.
Yeah, so we already have now a trial period for the gate closures if we accept the amendment to motion 4, Chair, because that says a 9-month period. Okay, so that's your trial period.
That's what I just want to make sure it's not missed.
So I think that so we just need to figure out the best way of phrasing the old 5, don't we, really, to make sure it's consistent with what we're trying to do. So delegate to work with football club and other users of the site to agree the most with operation gate closures. I think that's fine. I think we can leave that as it is, I think, because you can operate the other things around that.
Just outside, I hope this is a helpful comment, but that would need to be subject to the findings of the working group because of all the various legal stuff and things around that, and the other stakeholders. I mean, you've got East Sussex County Council, for example. So I just to recognise that relationship.
The alternative would be to consider 6 to be a replacement for 5.
And because we've got. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think motion 5 is mainly the logistics behind the trial period, rather than being subject to the outcome of the working party. So what it's saying is, when we leave this meeting tonight, tomorrow morning, we can then work with relevant people to agree all of the arrangements around lights, adverts, gates in that time.
That's very helpful, Georgia. Thank you. I think everyone's got that. So I think we're leaving 5 as we are. We're just doing it after the working group 1, and then we are doing the working group as we've described it. So I think we have our motions, Chair.
Right. Okay, Councillor Meek.
We're going to take them one by one.
Just hopefully a helpful suggestion, would it be a good idea to put a time limit on the working group coming to be able to make a report in order to get that to full council for consideration well before the beginning of the new football season? I would suggest something like 6 months for the working group, then they've got time to bring it to full council, we can consider it, and then it's well in state before the new season. Something like that, Chair. Thank you very much.
Well, we said in the motion is written at the moment, is to report to full council within 9 months.
Within?
Yes. So within 9, so that should be achieved. What's that described? If you're happy with.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to accept the shall just
Right, I'm going to take each item separately because it's too muddly otherwise. Right, so number 1 is to note and discuss the contents of the report. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Weymouth and a seconder. Councillor Rees-Sturton, all in favour? Thank you.
Noted.
Right, number 2 is to approve the football club displaying advertisements in accordance with planning permission. What's the word?
For a period of 9 months.
Granted for a period.
For an initial period of 9 months.
For initial period of 9 months. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Markwell and a seconder, Councillor Sturton, and all in favour?
That's carried, Chair.
Thank you. Number 3, to approve the football club operating the floodlights in accordance with the planning permissions granted. Initially for a period of 9 months. Please can I have a proposer, Councillor Bourman, and a seconder was Councillor Lord, and then all in favour? Thank you.
That's carried, Chair.
Number 4, to approve the concept of closing gates to the Crouch at certain times to facilitate the needs of the football club during matches in accordance with the specifics to be agreed as set out in report XX-23. And that's again for a period of 9 months. Can we have a proposer, please? Councillor Rees-Sturton and a seconder, Councillor Bourman, and then all in favour? Hang on, not everyone put their hands up.
That's passed, Chair.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you. Number 5, to delegate power to the head of assets, projects and services in consultation with the chair of the town council and chair of community services to work with the football club and other users of the site to agree the most effective and reasonable operational details of the gate closures. Can I have a proposer? Councillor Weymouth and a seconder, Councillor Rees-Sturton, and all in favour?
That's passed,
no,
Chair.
Yeah, not everyone. Any against? Oh, within 9 months.
So, well, this is not time limited.
Sorry, I added the 9 months. Sorry, I should have done that.
This is, as Georgia just explained, this is designed to enable this to happen straight away.
Yes, sorry, I added that in by mistake. Right, number 6. To basically
to create a working group of councillors to further consider these matters and to report to full council within 9 months.
Proposer, seconder, Councillor Rees-Sturton, and then all in favour. Do we need to sort the working party out tonight, or can be done another night, another time?
I think that we're going to sort this out another time.
Okay.
Can we do it tonight through you, Chair? Because we've been delaying the process of getting the decision making and the end of 9 months. If it's made tonight, we can start tonight. So we've got 9 months starting from now. And I said at the very beginning, we need a guilty. Let's start guilty from now. Otherwise, it's going to be another month.
Okay.
Through you, Chair. If you don't mind me saying
No, that's absolutely fine.
That's fine. All right. So in that case, then I think that we would look for expressions of interest for councillors to be members of this working group.
Yeah, I would propose. I'd like to be part of the working group.
Okay, so that's Councillor Honeyman,
Councillor Rees-Sturton, Councillor Bourman, Councillor Bristow, Councillor Adamji, Councillor Winter-Sturton. Stop there.
Full committee.
So that's 6 hours. Okay.
Did we get that written down?
So
can I withdraw? So can I withdraw? Because well, go on.
So we have 5 councillors for the working group. I think we will then leave, the full council will be leaving to those 5 councillors, election of chair, frequency, stuff like that. It might be, again, I'm not going to formally record this, but I think that we would expect a bit more information to come back to full council, in terms of reference, chair, those sorts of things, so that we have clarity on that going forward.
Brilliant, thank you. That concludes agenda item number 12. I'm actually going to propose that we take a comfort break because it's now 9 o'clock. Agenda item number 13 is to seek approval of the tender process relating to Martello toilets.
Yes, the timescales for tenders coming in and the full council meetings don't quite match, and because we're really keen to get the toilets built ready for Easter break, we didn't want to delay the process. So the suggestion is as per the recommendation, and we go ahead with the tenders with nominated councillors and make a decision.
Thank you. Any questions, Councillor Buchanan?
When are the tenders returned? I thought they were back the other day.
Sorry?
When will the tenders be returned?
Yeah, so they are just coming in at the moment. We haven't sorted them all through, done any work, looked at them, assessed them.
I did actually volunteer my services to Paul to assess any mechanical and electrical issues that may appear, because it's a design and build contract.
Yeah.
So it's important to be able to understand how tenders are interpreting the scope of work that they've been given. So I'd be happy to help if I can.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Paul?
Yeah, I'll have a look at those as well, please.
I don't understand. I'm not really clear on who can be on and who can't. So I know we've put the two chairs on because that's process.
I think that we've got a choice of two things here, councillors, just to be moving forward. I think that what we can pass motion as passed on the understanding that those named persons are free to liaise with other experts as they wish, or we can amend the motion saying that they can do that. I don't think we need to do an amendment if councillors are happy to proceed on that basis. Okay, let's proceed on that basis.
Everyone happy to proceed on that?
On that basis.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite clear what basis one's proceeding on.
Is that the named people here will consult with other relevant colleagues as well.
Okay.
To draw on any necessary expertise to help in their decision making.
Councillor?
Yeah, I'd like to propose the motion.
Opposed, thank you. Seconded. In favour?
Yep.
That's everyone. Thank you very much, Chair.
Right, number 14. To update and confirm with full council the responsible financial officer arrangements.
Thank you very much, Chair. Apologies, it's called 13 at the top. We know it's 14 really, but more seriously, I hope Council had the opportunity to look at the report and explain the reasons behind Andy Bean's currently with us and the work he's doing to mentor our finance manager to become our RFO next year. Fantastic start for that opportunity. Back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Any questions? Councillor Hura.
Just a comment actually, just like to thank Lucy Clark, our finance manager, and the town clerk and Trug for being really communicative with me and explaining through this process, and I would like to support this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tibas.
4.6 was not discussed at the personnel committee. It wasn't in the... Beg your pardon.
We're still having your number agenda.
It's not the 4.1.
We're all confused about them. Right, okay, easily done. It's getting late. Councillor Ballman.
I'd like to second the motion.
Okay. When time's ticking on, isn't it? Right, can we have a second? We've done proposed second. Okay.
We took the two together. Okay, that's fine.
Oh God, I've got things so far and then it's like...
Okay, so now we've got to do it.
Now on to the Exempt. No, I've got to take it over. We've got to turn the camera on.